room in a white coat and says, I just got a new chip for the Porsche. It was only $3,500 and it gives me 16,000 more horsepower. And he is now he's now charged with some real responsibility because I was diagnosed a couple of weeks ago with bladder cancer, and they keep throwing around words like urgent and lethal and aggressive whenever they talk to me about this. And I can't seem to escape from this Chinese water torture. These people who have never had an elegant moment or an eloquent moment in their lives are now describing my short but enjoyable life in really inelegant terms. In any case, I came here in 1978 with Car and Driver magazine, and a lot of people made fun of me for that. Brock Yates has several times made incredibly rude remarks. I would take the magazine out of New York and bring it out here. Yeah. And he always described the worst possible motives. And I was, when the magazines were going up for sale at Ziff Davis, I was called into New York and asked to have a meeting with the lawyers and the accountants for the Times Mirror company, who was interested in buying the magazine. And since Car and Driver was the most profitable magazine at Ziff Davis, they wanted to talk to me because I was its editor and publisher. And they said, well, why is the magazine in Ann Arbor? And I said, I can't say that all the wonderful things that have happened to Car and Driver magazine have happened because we're in Ann Arbor. But I can tell you as a matter of absolute incontrovertible fact that all the wonderful things that have happened to this magazine happened after we moved to Ann Arbor. And it's absolutely true. Ann Arbor was a wonderful home for this place, and the magazine flourished here. And it sort of goes back to a study I did for General Motors when I was in the advertising business about the death of all of the, what we used to call class mass and major magazines like Collier's Post, Life, all of those which died one after another. And it was clear that there was a huge opportunity for magazines that nobody seemed to be able to take advantage of. And the sort of people who were brought in from outside to save the magazine business were exactly the sort of people who had been trained from birth to kill the magazine business. And they're still there, and the rest of us are out here looking for work. Mrs. Haberman has been sitting here smiling at me. She has a wonderful smile, and you're immediately reassured and made to believe that you're not such a bad person after all when you walk through the door and she smiles at you. Toby was looking at the book I just finished about Bud Lion, and in the notes about me, it said that I was born in a house in Burnside, Kentucky, without electricity or running water, and she raised her eyebrows and pointed to that passage with her finger to say, in effect, is this really true? And it was really true. It was 60 years ago, my Aunt Lucy, wanted very badly to go to a basketball game at Burnside High School in Burnside, Kentucky. My mother wanted very badly to just die and not have to go through this long, painful labor that she was going through to deliver me, of all people. 60 years ago.
You said 60!
Nice
try! Yeah! We know about you! Yeah.
It seemed like 80 in my
Oh, liar, 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 pants on fire.
That liar, liar, pants on fire was my sister. And she'll pay for this.
I'll get the microphone.
I was in this very space. They had a thing here for our Aunt Harriet. Harriet Arnold, who was a Southern novelist, and had quite a following around this part of the world. And Jane and I showed up, and it turned out that these people had paid something like $75 a head to have dinner and talk about my Aunt Harriet, or our Aunt Harriet. And half of them had not read any of her books. Any number of them had no idea who she was. But they were delighted to be here, spending money like water, and not hearing anything anybody said because there was no sound system, and there was a wedding going on in the next room. And when it came time for me to talk, I ran out of gas. I could not project powerfully enough to be heard and to keep talking. And I
That's not true.
I was going to have to get help. So
Not true.
I said, I looked around the room and I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're extremely fortunate my sister Jane is here.
Oh!
Jane Mikulski. And she was much closer to my Aunt Harriet than I was. And Jane will now speak to you. And Jane has been in public education for 30 years.
42.
And,
He's batting zero, isn't he?
Yeah, just after you were born, I went into public education.
Her mouth shut. She stood and looked at a group of people sort of like this, except they were all sitting down poking at their dinners. And she let out a noise on behalf of my Aunt Harriet that stopped everything cold. I mean, it was actually painful how effectively she got the words across to all these people sitting in a room. And I could never have done it, but her experience yelling at a bunch of juvenile delinquents from the other side of the swimming pool in high school was just exactly what the evening required. And she saved the day. So now, almost any time that I have an occasion like this where I have to speak, I smuggle my sister in, who will spring to her feet and make me sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, David.
And most recently, we joined some terrible woman from Michigan State University who was talking about Aunt Harriet and was clearly in some other building. Harriet had her literary career and came and went from the surf. And I'm just going to keep doing that. And my sister will be the truth squad. And as you've already heard, it's an area where she has some skill. And we'll get some laughs along the way. I wish I could bring each of you up here one at a time and explain how it is that you mean so much to me. I look at P.J. O'Rourke, who beat some really serious illness last year, the year before. I look at Bruce McCall, who has finally bored his wife to such a point that she just stayed in the motel in Windsor or something. I talked to her on the phone just before we came over, and I said, remember, your husband is the man who wrote eloquently about border towns of southern Ontario. You don't want to miss this. She said something to the effect that she sure as hell did want to miss it. So she's not here, but Bruce is. And Bruce, in his book, Thin Ice, he talks about me coming to Toronto to recruit him to go to work at Campbell Ewald. And I was driving at that time a Ferrari that belonged to a wonderful man named Bill Pierce in Grosse Pointe, who had a film business doing animated cartoon films. And I drove up in his Ferrari tour de France, and Bruce described that as David E. blowing into town at the wheel of some full race Ferrari. I thought it was considerably more romantic than that, but having made his book, and I should say that with P.J. O'Rourke here as well, thinking about Bruce writing about Canada, we did a test of cars where we drove all the way from Detroit to Montreal using 401, and of course if you do that you drive along the shores of Lake Ontario for hours, and PJ in his piece described Lake Ontario as the Mare Nostrum of hockey. Has John Kalash left?
No, he's not.
John Kalash.
All right.
John Kalash is the Polish Jeremiah Johnson. I have hunted and fished with him for 30 years or more. And he is one of the funniest men who ever lived. And physically, one of the strongest men I have ever known. And we were out fishing for walleye one night on Lake Erie. And Kalash, who now spends an awful lot of his time in a wheelchair, including doing some hunting from the wheelchair, including shooting trap from the wheelchair, and lots of other things. And John was kind of creaky and seemed like he was having trouble running the boat. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Oh yeah." He said they put me up in the rafters today at that steel mill, and they wanted me to fix the motor that drives the overhead crane. And he said, "I don't know what it is." He said, "I got hold of it and turned it, and I felt something go in my back." And he says, "God damn, I'm over 40 years old now, and I used to be able to move anything in that plant that wasn't nailed down too good." And I pride myself on the fact that I was there the day that nature brought Kalash down. We were shooting crows in Canada one afternoon, and we came back across the Ambassador Bridge, and there was a huge sweep going on by the federal United States conservation people as well as the Michigan conservation people. And we're in my Suburban, and Kalash is sitting next to me. And as we're coming down the ramp from the Ambassador Bridge, one of the federal guys turns and looks through my windshield and sees Kalash, and you can tell exactly what was happening. He turned back to all these federal agents and state agents, spread his arms wide, and he says, "Hey, you guys, look what we got here." Kalash has bombarded the capitals of various states in this area for better conservation laws, more friends to the animals, everything you can imagine that would be good for the Great Lakes. Kalash has been behind it and has fought for it. And I love him dearly. And I don't want him moving any more large motors to run cranes and Blackberry. Just go duck hunting with me once a day throughout every duck season in our combined futures. That would be good. The automobile business here is a disaster, as you all know. The government seems to have worked pretty hard to find presentable criminals that can decide the future of the automobile. One of them was being a criminal. Well, he was also being the automotive czar. I don't like it. in the spirit of free enterprise, I guess you have to admire them. I left Michigan in '55, married a young woman that I'd gone to high school with and that I had done local theater with, who wanted nothing more in life than to move to California, settle down, and just live the good life in the sunshine. And I married her. We moved to California, and within the next couple of years, we had moved back and forth across the United States something like 7 times. And when she divorced me, one of the reasons for the divorce was that we had moved 12 times in 10 years. And it always seemed to me like a perfect arrangement. I'd come home and I'd say, wow, God, I was just in Elaine Bond's office today and she wants me to go to Detroit. And Norma would say, we worked for years to get out of Detroit. Why are we going back to Detroit? It's going to be sensational. And then 6 months later, whoa, today I got a phone call. They want me to move to New York. No, we're not going to move to New York. Yeah, we're going to move to New York. I called and rented an apartment. And the son, David Davis, who was born in New York, was very much a factor when we were repainting and redoing the apartment on 77th at York. And gradually the tension had been building between us. Being pregnant, she was a little testy anyway, and she had not wanted to move to New York in the first place. So it got to be around 10 o'clock on Sunday night, and I wanted to shut down and go to bed. And I yelled something from one end of the apartment to the other end, like, we ought to just stop, pack up, and try to get some sleep. And she yelled back, thinking I had said something insulting, and said, what did you say? And I said, I've got the story. She yelled to me, and I said, what the hell did you say? And she said, I said, I just got in the bathtub and broke my goddamn water. And I rushed her off to the hospital, and she had David, who is not with us this afternoon. I went to the Chanticleer the next morning and told Rene Dreyfus that I had become a father during the night, and he bought me a wonderful lunch and a wonderful glass of Mar de Bourgogne, which I had never drunk before, and has since become a staple of my drinking diet. I've kept you all standing here for a long time, but I want you to know that you are a lovely bunch. And I am blessed by the kind of friends I've had and the people who have supported me in all of my various enterprises. It's never been bad. It's always been great. And usually, as great as the last one was, the next one was better. So thank you for everything. I want to thank everybody who pitched in and did all the work necessary to make this happen. I'm rich in my friends, and I'll never forget any of you. Here, here.
I'm David's sister.